Whether the Marlins end up getting eliminated today or they live to see the next game, this team is going to fight to the very end.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. Locked On Marlins, your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Today is a live show, so the comments are open on the YouTube channel. Hop in, ask me any questions, your comments, your concerns. It's the last chance for the Miami Marlins. They're battling to the very end. You got to give them that. They won the first game against the Phillies to extend their winning streak to 7 before getting blown out yesterday. They lost 11-1 rather, in disappointing fashion, but they weren't eliminated yet because the Mets lost, the Diamondbacks lost. So we're going to look at the playoff scenarios here. Marlins have a chance. It might be a slight chance, but I know one thing for certain. No matter the odds, this team is going to show up today and they're going to fight. They're going to fight like hell and they're going to compete and they're going to go out on their shield because that's the nature of this team. That's the quality of the clubhouse that they have. We got already everyday listeners. Broward's in the chat. We hear DJ Chili Phil. Mr. says, we're still in this, boys. Yes, we are. The Marlins have not been eliminated yet. And you're looking at the playoff scenario for the Fish. What it really comes down to is you need the Mets to lose. You need, and they're playing the Cubs on the road, so that's a difficult game in of itself, although the Cubs choked a 6-0 lead earlier this week. That would have helped the Marlins playoff chances. And then you're going to have the Diamondbacks. They have to continue losing. The Giants have already been eliminated from postseason consideration. So no matter what happens, the Marlins they're not competing against the Giants anymore. They're competing against the Mets. They're competing against the Diamondbacks. And I think the Cardinals are still alive. They're still alive for a potential playoff berth, although it's very unlikely that happens. The one glimmer of hope that the Marlins have is this weekend. This weekend, the Fish play the Mets head-to-head in a 3-game series. That's an opportunity to, number one, you can get those games back if you're still alive heading into the weekend and the Diamondbacks completely collapse. And number two, and we're going to talk about this in the next segment, you can knock the Mets out of contention. And given the history of the Mets franchise, their fan base, who I think is very unlikable, an arrogant group of individuals who act entitled no matter what, they have a $260 million roster or whatnot. I'd love nothing more than if this team is eliminated, you go out and you ruin the Mets season. And as Thomas Joseph says, the Marlins are no pushovers. This team is not going to roll over for anybody, no matter what. And I do want to just give a quick heads up. I was pretty sick the last couple of days, so that's why there was no episode yesterday. So I'm making up for it. I got a couple of episodes today, this live show, of course, and then this weekend I'm going to do one Saturday, and depending on the situation, I might even crank another one out on Sunday. But I am feeling better. Appreciate all the well wishes. Danny says that this whole season has earned them the title of the Fighting Fish. And he's right. This team fights. I mean, if you had told me at the beginning of the season that literally 4 games before the end of the campaign, the Marlins would be in contention mathematically for a playoff spot, I would have said, you're nuts. You're nuts. I thought this team was going to lose 100 games. They weren't in a position from a roster standpoint, I felt like, to be remotely competitive. And guess what? They proved me wrong. That's the beauty of baseball, is that the games aren't played on paper. Because if the game was played on paper, if the game was based on, if wins and losses were based on who has the highest payroll, then the Mets would set the record for wins in a season. And guess what? They're hardly scratching 80. So don't give me any of that. The game is played with 3 bases. You need 27 outs to win the game. 3 strikes equals a strikeout. 4 balls, you take your base. It's the same rules for the last 100 years or so. So for the Marlins, let's just play baseball. Fundamentals. It's all about the fundamentals. I got a question here. Colin says, is Jansen Junk someone to consider for the rotation for next season? Absolutely, Colin. And I talked about this episode yesterday, but the day before, in which he went 7 innings of 1-run ball against the Rangers. By the way, the Rangers just got eliminated from postseason consideration as well. Guess who had a hand in that? Your Miami Marlins. Swept them this past weekend. But Jansen Junk is a pitcher who I really like his profile. He throws mid-90s. He has numerous pitches in his arsenal he can go to, and he controls the game. He doesn't allow free passes. And what's the one thing that, just hinders a pitcher from reaching his top potential? It's control. You could have the best stuff in the world, Edward Cabrera, and then struggle with control the majority of the year. And although Cabrera figured it out this season, many pitchers don't. So for Jansen to have just 13 walks in over 105 innings, I think it's crazy. Like, number one, that level of command is just incredible, because for those of you who have played baseball, I mean, it's and pitched specifically, it's tough to dominate the strike zone that consistently, especially at the major league level. When you throw the ball over the plate, you risk getting hit. Number one, you risk getting hit hard. But credit to Junk, I think the Marlins have a very tough decision on their hands, but it's a good decision. What we're seeing, the emergence of Jansen Junk, who was a minor league free agent, absolutely no expectations surrounding him this offseason, that's creating competition in the Grapefruit League. And I think the 2026 Grapefruit League season is going to be one of the most exciting in recent memory, just in terms of pure competition. Who's going to make the starting 5 rotation? Because I can think of 6 to 10 guys who legitimately have an argument to be in next year's rotation. Offensively, crowded outfield. We're going to talk about the outfield and specifically Griffin Conine later. Third base, Graham Pauley, Connor Norby. Where do they go with that situation? I think the middle infield's locked up. First base, though, you have Troy Johnston, Eric Wagaman, possibly Augustin Ramirez if they ever decide to, look to the obvious and say he's not a catcher. Do they try to make him a first baseman? There's a lot of exciting storylines heading into this offseason and spring training. Thomas says, would we rather have the Mets or the Phillies in the World Series if we had to choose? I'm going to say the Phillies. I like the Phillies just a bit more than the Mets. I really dislike the Mets. And the way I look at the division, the National League East, in terms of just good old-fashioned hatred, I really hate the Braves. And then there's the Mets, and then the Phillies. The Nationals, to me, they're just irrelevant at this point. I don't think they're going to be good in the next 5 years. They're going to have to tear it all down, just like the Marlins did a couple of seasons ago. So, I mean, that whole Juan Soto trade with Mackenzie Gore, and they gave up. Who else did they give up? Or the Padres gave to them. They gave Mackenzie Gore. They gave up James Wood. It's not working out for them. So I would go with the Phillies. Comment in the chat what you guys think. Thomas says he prefers the Brewers or the Padres. I'd love to see that. I like both teams. The Brewers, kind of a money ball team, just consistently competitive. I didn't think they were going to be this good in this season. And then they have the best record in the National League, and I believe in baseball. Mr. says, regardless if we make the playoffs or not, in terms of success and the upcoming season, what's the biggest takeaway from this season? Also glad to see you're feeling better, Jeremiah. I appreciate the words. The biggest takeaway from this season, Mr. is that the Marlins are closer than I expected, and they've developed the core. We're seeing the plan that Peter Bendix is implementing in terms of rebuilding the farm system, in terms of getting young, controllable talent. We're seeing the fruits of that labor. Jacob Marcy, cornerstone player. Kyle Stowers, cornerstone player. Augustin Ramirez as well. These guys are legitimate pieces of what I believe will be the next Marlins postseason team. So I'm excited for the future. I think everybody watching or listening to the show, because you can listen to the replay, of course, on all the podcast platforms, you should be hyped, because what we've seen this season is development and growth at a level that I could not have predicted. And to me, that's a win in my book. Coming up next, we're going to talk about this weekend, the Marlins against the Mets. I would love nothing more to spoil the Mets season. We're going to talk about that right after this. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel's great because it fits however you like to bet, whether that's player props, building a same-game parlay, jumping in to live action bets during the game. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or you're just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. For all those people who enjoy fantasy baseball, fantasy football is in full swing. FanDuel's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add some more energy to your NFL Sunday. So if you're ready to play, go ahead, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And if that $5 bet wins, you'll receive $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Go to FanDuel.com today. I appreciate all the everyday listeners listening, tuned in to Locked On Marlins throughout the season. It's been a great ride, been a great season discussing Marlins baseball with you. I got the throwback Mitchell and Ness Florida Marlins cap. I'd love to see the Marlins eventually undergo a uniform change to incorporate the teal. I think that's an opinion held by probably 98% of the Marlins fan base. But let's get to some more questions before we talk about the Mets and the Marlins series. So let's see here. Let's see, who do we have? Colin says, could Joe Mack play in the majors next season? I think Gus is okay at catching, but rather have Mack and Hicks catching going forward. Colin, I'm going to say this. Joe Mack is going to play in the majors next season, and he will be the Marlins' number one catcher. That's how I look at it. He could be playing right now, and there's a degree of, I guess, hesitation with the organization in calling up a couple of their top prospects, specifically Joe Mack and their stud pitching prospect, Robbie Snelling, who's also in AAA. But Joe Mack is ready, and defensively, he's just light years ahead of where Augustin Ramirez is. Augustin Ramirez is a clear liability behind the plate. In just terms of his ability to block pitches, he can't do it. He can't throw out runners. He's not a catcher. And the Marlins know that internally. They'll never go out and say it openly, but they know it, and they know what they have in Joe Mack. I expect great things from Joe. And if you watch that swing, it's different. He's offensively, I think he's going to profile as one of the best hitting catchers in baseball long-term. And then you have his defense, which is well above average. You're looking at a potential perennial all-star candidate. So really excited for his future. Jaden says, what are your thoughts on Max Meyer potentially becoming a starting pitcher next season? Ooh, good question, Jaden. Appreciate it. So for me, I'm out. I am out on Max Meyer being a starting pitcher long-term. The reason I say that is because he doesn't have, for whatever reason, he's never figured out that third quality pitch that he can rely on. Yes, he developed the changeup Yes, he developed the sweeper. The issue is his fastball is as flat as a board. It has no movement to it whatsoever. And at 95, 96 miles an hour, it gets crushed. The slider is really, really good. And I love that. It's great. It's an elite pitch. That's why the Marlins drafted him with the 3rd overall pick back in 2020. But besides that, what do you really see out of Max Meyer that sparks confidence in him as a starter long term? Sure, he had that outing against the Reds, 14 strikeouts. That's where I was completely on board. I thought, this is the breakout season. We're going to see Max Meyer become an all-star. He's the best pitcher on the Marlins right now. And then just as soon as that happened, he started trending down. The walks rose. He didn't pitch deeper into games. He started getting hit harder. In an ideal world, if I'm running the Marlins system and I'm their president of baseball operations, I switch places with Peter Bendix. There are 2 things that I'm considering this offseason. Number 1, I'm calling around and I'm seeing, is there another team out there that potentially believes in Max as a starter? Can we trade him? Because we have the depth to do so. And they could have done so a couple of years ago. They opted not to. And then, of course, Max, he had Tommy John surgery. It was a long road back. The whole spiel last year in which he was splitting time between AAA and the majors, just kind of in no man's land, waiting for his opportunity. The Marlins could move on from Meyer, or they could move him to the pen, because I think Max in the bullpen is going to throw way harder. I mean, he hit 100 miles an hour before in college. He could for an inning or 2, rear back, consistently hit 98, 99 with the right conditioning program and strength programs. Or he goes with his slider, which is a true 80 grade pitch, and that's a weapon. That's a strikeout weapon who you can bring out in high leverage innings. Let's see here. Absolutely. The teal unis are awesome. And remember those 2023 uniforms where they wore the pinstripe throwbacks? I love those. Broward says he hopes Sandy goes crazy in his final game at home. Hopefully only his final game this season. Let's talk about this Mets series. First off, Sandy Alcantara. You're right, Broward. He's starting his last game of the regular season at home in front of what will be a big crowd, because there's going to be a lot of Mets fans at the game, and the chance to do some real damage. Huge damage. The Mets right now have squandered each and every opportunity to secure a playoff spot. There is no world in which the Mets shouldn't have already clinched a playoff berth. The problem is the Mets have sucked at baseball the last 3 months with a $260 million roster, and they haven't put it away. And that's left the door open for the Reds. It's left the door open for the Diamondbacks, and the Marlins themselves are still in this thing. So looking at the standings, right now you have the Mets 81-77. You have the Diamondbacks at Reds tied at 80 and 78. Then you have the Marlins at 77 and 81, the Cardinals and Giants at 78 and 81. And I think, and I'm not sure, because I saw something yesterday or this morning where the Giants were eliminated. I'm not sure how the math checks out. Maybe it was a troll post. Maybe it was a troll post. But I really think they were eliminated. But the Mets, if you're the Marlins and you have Sandy Alcantara, who you pushed back a start. Sandy was originally scheduled to start in Philadelphia if they had the original 5-man rotation. You pushed him back a game to start the opening game of the series against the Mets at home. And there's 2 reasons for that, I think. Number 1, you're at home. You get to pitch in front of your fan base, your fans, in your home stadium. Number 2, the stakes of the Marlins-Phillies game, for the Phillies, these games mean nothing. For the Mets, they mean everything. Everything. So I can't wait. I can't wait for that start. I can't wait for that series. I think Edward Cabrera, he made his final start of the season. Maybe he'll start Sunday, depending how it lines up but we should see Yuri. And anytime you're an opposing lineup and you have to face Sandy and Yuri, that could bode trouble for you. But let's go fish. Spoil the Mets season. Chris, with the question about Braxton Garrett, what's the timeline looking for Garrett? Does he get another rotation chance after the TJ recovery? What's his outlook, expectations, and hopes? Appreciate the question, Chris. So for Braxton Garrett, he says he's 100%. He's ready to go this offseason. He's going to be locked in for spring training. He's going to be completely ready for spring training. Of course, Tommy John surgery, you could be healthy coming off of Tommy John surgery. You know, he's going to potentially, pitch in Grapefruit League games, pitch in the opening day rotation. That's one thing. So the timeline, it checks out. Remember, he didn't pitch at all in 2025. I think he had Tommy John surgery towards the back half of 2024. But either way, he's progressing well. The question is the expectation factor. Because if there's anything I've learned from this season, it's be cautious with pitchers coming off of Tommy John surgery. Classic example for this year, Sandy Alcantara. Came off of Tommy John surgery, looked horrendous, and then half of the season goes by, the trade deadline passes, and then it finally clicks. He gets in his groove, and what do you know? He looks like Sandy Alcantara once again. Yuri Perez, first 2 or 3 starts, little shaky with command, but he was quicker off the jump to get back to his talent and what he can do and reach his potential off of Tommy John surgery. So it's a very individual, issue or challenge for a pitcher when they're coming off of Tommy John surgery. I do believe that the Marlins still look at him as a starter. He's going to get every opportunity to stick in this rotation because if you think back to 2023, that was a season in which Braxton Garrett was the most consistent Marlins starter. He was better than Sandy Alcantara. Yuri only had, I think it was 19 starts, 11 starts. I think it was 19, but that seems like way too much. Maybe it was 11. Either way, he didn't come up until, a couple months into the year. Braxton Garrett, he pitched around 30 games. He was consistent and he was really effective. Let's talk about Edward Cabrera real quickly before we hit the next segment. Broward says, what are we doing about Cabby? He didn't look good the other day. Yeah, he was coming off of injury. The fact that he was out there in general was just a huge bonus because, I thought he was going to have to undergo Tommy John surgery. Once I heard elbow sprain and I saw Mish's tweet saying, the elbow sprain is a bad omen and the majority of these cases lead to Tommy John, I was devastated because Cabrera had turned a page. He was awesome this season. I thought that was going to be taken away for 2026. However, he started throwing. He felt good enough to give it a go in the rotation. Now, his pitch count was limited, about 60 pitches, I would say. So, first start off of the injured list, I'm fine with it. You still see his velocity. He still got the stuff. Did he struggle a little bit against a really good lineup? Yes. And Chris says, what was the deal with his hand slamming the rosin bag? He deals with blisters a lot. Cabrera has been pulled from games. He's landed on the injured list before with blisters. So it possibly could have something to do with that and the sweat, the adrenaline. So I'm not worried about him long-term as long as he's healthy. If he's healthy, he's going to produce because the breakout season in which we saw this year, it's absolutely real. We're going to talk about Griffin Conine, Niner, the son of Mr. Marlin, and what he brings to the table right after this. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, so you can get hard and go to the distance. And the effects last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is very simple. You connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly and ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom. All you have to do, you go over, you head to Rugiet.com. That's Rugiet.com. Go ahead and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. Again, that's Rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and make sure to use our code so they know we sent you over there. Welcome back to this live edition of Locked On Marlins, still taking questions. So if you have any questions in this final segment, hit me up in the chat. Real quickly, I got to get to this comment here. So it's a good one. Mr. says, I truly more than anything believe we just need a solid 1 or 2 pitcher or maybe a solid first baseman and we could have a contender. I agree with the second part. I think the first part, guys, we have a pretty good rotation. Yuri, Sandy, Cabrera, who I just talked about and who is healthy. Hopefully it stays that way. I don't think we need another frontline starter, and that's not even mentioning Ryan Weathers, Jansen Junk, Braxton Garrett, Robbie Snelling in AAA. I think the pitching staff is in a good spot, and I'm going to do a full breakdown on the rotation later on, of course, doing the 40-man roster analysis. So that's an idea for a future episode, but a lot to talk about. The Griffin Conine. So I'll be completely honest with you. Heading into this season, I was not a Griffin Conine believer. I thought he struck out too much. I thought he was going to be a boom or bust profile offensively that was going to bust at the major league level. I looked at the high strikeout rate in AAA, in AA, throughout his entire minor league career, and I said he's going to get eaten alive by major league pitching. And guess what? That hasn't been the case. He had a cameo in the 2024 season, which started to open up a lot of eyes. 89 plate appearances. He hit 268, an OPS of 777. And all of a sudden, you're like, okay, maybe Conine does have something at this major league level. And then, start of April, on fire. His OPS, 76 plate appearances, 806. Now, that's on the season. He just came back and homered. So, I mean, if you count the beginning of the year and then that 1 or 2 games right off the injured list, still an OPS around 800. Limited playing time, yes. But enough of a sample size with last year and this year combined. And the eye test, he passes the eye test. He hits the ball extremely hard. Had a 117-mile-an-hour double earlier this season. I think Conine should be the heavy favorite heading into next season to claim a starting role. And I'm not going to pencil him in there just yet because of the emergence of other players. Heriberto Hernandez, Dane Myers, who had an up and down year, dealt with injuries, dealt with inconsistency, but still a player who the organization really likes. Kemp Alderman in AAA. Griffin Conine, though, should be given every opportunity to be the starter in a corner outfield spot for the majority of next season. And I'm excited. I think he's a legit power threat who could be the first Marlin to hit 30 bombs since Jorge Soler. I know Connor Norby said he was going for 30 bombs and it didn't happen. I think Kyle Stowers is another guy who can hit 30 bombs and probably would have had he not gotten injured this year. But if Conine's healthy, 30, 35, maybe even 40 bombs you're looking for from him in 2026. The product out of Duke, he's the real deal. And I can live with the chase rate. I can live with the strikeout rate, even though, you'd like to see him bring down the swing and miss. I think I can say that about any power hitter. The power is too strong not to put him in the lineup when he's healthy. Jaden says, do I think the Marlins should look to add a true first baseman or stick with Hicks, Wagaman, and Johnston to handle the position in a rotation? Good question. I think the Marlins, and I talked about this in a couple of weeks ago. I did an episode in which I laid out my dream free agent scenario, and that's to sign Josh Naylor to a multi-year deal. Sign Josh Naylor, add him to this young core, and solidify first base. Will they do that? Probably not. Let's be honest. I'm disillusioned to the fact that, you know, the Marlins are going to potentially spend, if that is a fact. I don't know if they'll spend or not, but I just can't, in my heart of hearts, sit here and say I think there's a legitimate possibility. It's a pipe dream at this point. I'd love to see them go out and sign Josh Naylor, but I don't think they will. Internal options, like you said, Liam Hicks, Wagaman, and Johnston. Wagaman, I don't know. I really don't know. Has he heated up? Yeah, he has, and I'll give him that. But inconsistent over the whole of the season, and there's a couple of things that stand out to me that I really don't like. Number one is the low power output. For a first baseman of his stature, I would expect some more homers, and he doesn't walk at all. Hicks isn't a first baseman. He can play it, but he's 5'9". You really don't want to see him there extensively over 162 game season. Troy Johnston, I'm a huge fan of. And as Mr. Mister says, he sees Troy as a permanent first baseman. He's good defensively and has a solid bat. The calling card for Troy has always been his bat. He's hit in the minors throughout the 7 seasons he was there, and then he comes up to the Marlins, struggles at first, but a testament to his character and how he plays the game, he just settles back into a groove. And a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, he had that 2-homer game, including the walk-off against the Tigers. I'm a big Troy Johnston fan, real nice guy, and a player who should be given every opportunity to at least hold the long side of the platoon, you know, hit against righties. On the season, since he got called up, 102 at-bats, hitting .275 and an OPS of 764 with 4 bombs, 13 RBIs. So I'd love to see Troy get an opportunity in 2026, especially if they're not going to move Agustin Ramirez to first, which I think they should just do that. I think they should give him a first baseman glove and try to teach him the position. Speaking of position moves, as Thomas just said, a position move should be in the cards. Heriberto, Ramirez, or Myers. I'm going with Augustine. I don't want to see him catch anymore, and I think he's too young to become a full-time DH. I don't think we're at that point where you just put him in the DH role and just forget about it and let his bat take care of the rest. If he can provide you some value, just average value at first base and still hit, then you're going to feel great. Because here's the thing, and I've mentioned this also before, when Augustine catches, his offensive numbers tank. They're terrible because he's doing 2 things at once, so it doesn't work out. AJ says, is Junk and Weathers ultimately just stopgaps until White and Snelling come up? I don't think they're stopgaps, AJ. I think Ryan Weathers in particular can be part of the future. He's electric when he's healthy. He goes out and hits 99 miles an hour, throws a slider, throws a sweeper, throw the changeup at you. He's a really good pitcher. Former 7th overall pick out of a Tennessee high school. Big guy, you know, a lot of power in that left arm. I just think he's injury prone. And 2026 is going to be super important for him to try to buck that narrative and get the monkey off his back that he can't stay healthy. Can it be done? It can be. You look at the NFL, there's Christian McCaffrey, injury prone. He's been healthy the first 3 games. Well, is he going to stay healthy the whole season? I don't know. And that's how I feel about Weathers. He could start off in the opening day rotation, but I don't know if he's going to finish the season in the opening day rotation, because if he does, then you have a legitimate number 3, potentially number 2. I mean, I think Weathers' stuff from a stuff perspective is among the best in the Marlins' entire organization. But he gets slept on because he's never out there pitching. He's never out there getting his innings. And it's tough because there's a saying, the best ability is availability. And for a pitcher, there's a degree of truth to that. We're going to wrap it up here, guys. Awesome live show. A lot of action in the comments. I appreciate everybody who tuned in and who does tune in to Locked On Marlins. 4 games left. The Marlins might be eliminated by tonight, but hey, they're going to fight. They're going to go out swinging, throw a couple haymakers and see what happens. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And until next time, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.